Hello and welcome to Become the Teapot. I'm Iain.
And so am I.
There was an idea.
To bring together a group of remarkable Ians.
To see if we could become something more.
So when they needed us,
we could discuss the comic book adaptations.
That they never could.
As you may have surmised, this is a podcast where we compare comic book movies to the comics that inspired them. And this is our very first request episode.
Second?
What?
It's our second. Remember Connor requested we cover the boys?
Oh yeah. Okay, this is our very second request episode, because Luke, who some of you may remember from our Sin City episode, has been asking me to get Iain to read The Ultimates by Mark Millar and Bryan Hitch since, well, pretty much since we started this podcast.
But as far as I know, they've not made an Ultimates film.
No, they have not, but people who don't read comics sometimes believe that Marvel based the 2012 Avengers movie on the Ultimates universe, so I intend to prove just how wrong they are.
It's been 10 years, man.
They have to learn.
Well, in that case, let the lesson begin.
Avengers So, The Avengers, or as it was known in this country, Marvel's Avengers Assemble, is a 2012 film from Marvel Studios directed by Joss Whedon, in which half a dozen characters from other movies are cobbled together to face a threat that each couldn't face alone. Loki, the character that Thor did face alone in his own film.
Well.
Anyway, Iain, I know you're a fan of this film. You've said so before on the podcast.
Yes.
So, I'm not going to ask you if you liked it. What do you like about it?
Well, you've thrown me for a loop there, because I was going to say it's one of my favourite films, but you've taken away my introduction. I mean, I like how, to me, it's timeless. It's simple as well. So, you know, it came way before all these, 40-plus films, 60-plus TV shows that you now have to watch. Even if you've not seen the previous 5 films, to me, it still makes sense. So it's something that I think you can enjoy, whether you've seen the first 5 or not. And it was the first time that you had a proper team-up film. And I remember seeing the hero shot towards the end, when there's the Battle of New York.
Yeah.
It's, to me, that's just perfect, and it's the first time that we see it. And I was so excited when it first came out, going, this is what a 10-year-old me was, I wanted this for so long.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the expectation and the build-up of having these characters on screen together, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's easy to forget nowadays, now that the Marvel franchise has become this behemoth that it has become. But at the time, this was a bit of a gamble, and this was sort of unprecedented. 6 to 8 lead characters, depending on your definition, 4 of which are coming off the back of their own movies. It had the potential to be an absolute clusterfuck.
I mean, yeah.
This could have gone all kinds of wrong. And the fact that it is not only comprehensible, but actually just really good fun,
yes,
is miraculous.
I think this is what Justice League have been trying to copy, or at least the DC universe in my eyes. But what this film does is it shows us little clips and flashbacks, and it quotes things that happened in other films that we've seen, rather than just telling us and not showing us.
Yeah.
So I think they try to ram a lot of that into the first Justice League film, or the original cut, or whatever, and it's just stuff that's happened all off screen, and we're introduced all the characters in one film, where this, you've got that pre-existing relationship with them from their previous films.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I don't think you necessarily need to have seen those other films, because like you say, they do quite a good job of recapping those things. That's less the case for some of the later Avengers films, but certainly with this one, it does well as a sort of standalone thing. I think there's an argument that a lot of people make is that Justice League, everyone should have had a film of their own, and that was why the film didn't work. Well, that isn't quite true, I don't think, because I think the film doesn't really stand on its own merits anyway. I think that's the thing with this, is that there was no guarantee, even if you did if you created a Superman film, a Batman film, a Flash film, and you did all of that, there's still no guarantee that the crossover is going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
Decent.
Yeah, of course.
Intelligible. But I think this does it. I think it does a good job of balancing each of the characters, giving them all a reason for actually being here and doing something.
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception of Hawkeye, who gets sidelined a little bit, of all that mind control junk. I think everyone else, including Hawkeye, gets a payoff in this film.
Yeah. I don't like the hate that Hawkeye gets.
Okay.
I mean, fair enough, he's not super powered, whatever, but, it's not his fault that he got controlled by Loki. And then, like you said, he's got a reason to sort of come back and join the team and has a bit of a redemption arc, kind of. He doesn't do anything horrendously bad. Well, it kind of does, but, it's not his fault.
I just think they didn't really know what to do with him here, I think was my problem. I think they kind of wanted to sideline him for the major part of the plot and then have him on the team at the end. So
got you, right.
This whole mind control thing is, that's one of the few things that I'll say about this. But generally speaking, I think you look at the more recent Avengers films, like I said, and they just throw characters in there.
Yeah.
We're dealing with much larger numbers, so it is understandable. But they have little to no bearing on the plot, on what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Each character could be interchangeable. You could say, right, well, let's just take Ant-Man out of that scene and we'll put in, I don't know, Wasp. Let's take out Wasp and let's put in Valkyrie. And it wouldn't actually make any difference to those films.
Yeah.
I'd say each character in this film not only gets their moment to shine, but also they do feel the humour feels distinct, even though it's still that sort of quippy Joss Whedon-esque back and forth dialogue. But the jokes that they're making, Mark Ruffalo's sort of meek and shy, offhanded things. You've still got Tony Stark doing the rapid fire nonsense. And then you've got the, dated references for Captain America and things like that.
Yeah, I think the comedy's not too much in this. And I think a lot of, if not all, the jokes do land for me. And, I've seen it countless times. I honestly couldn't tell you how many times. And I still laugh at them. There was the bit where Coulson's on the phone to Nat and he's waiting there patiently while she just attacks 4 guards, whatever, and it just cuts to him going, do, I'll just hold. And I find that quite funny, even though I've seen it so many times. And there's a quote that me and my friend quoted countless times, which was his name is Agent, or his first name is Agent, because that's just Tony Stark being Tony Stark, or RDJ being RDJ.
Yeah.
But I think, that a lot of them, they do land, and I enjoy it, and also enjoy Coulson. I mean, he's the reason that I watched 7 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I was going to ask if
or 9 or 10 or whatever it was.
I think it was 7. You might be right. I was going to ask if you had seen all of that, but we'll talk about that later. But that seems like a topic for another day. But yeah, I wouldn't say that all of the humour lands for me. I'm struggling to think of examples at the moment, but a lot of what Tony Stark said, I didn't find that funny. But I kind of think that sort of annoying behaviour kind of works for him. You're like, oh, that's not funny, but moving on. I like the idea that Tony Stark thinks he's funnier than he actually is.
Oh, yeah. That's like me. I think I'm hilarious. I'm not.
I mean, as our listeners can verify.
How dare you?
But yeah, I'd say that those things, those little minor quibbles I have with this film is that, the quippy dialogue, and sometimes it seems a little bit televisual. It doesn't seem epic enough in scope in some of the shots.
Yeah.
Some of those things are relatively minor though, but as I say, the whole, I really enjoy this film. I think it's pretty obvious that, like you say, I've seen this film numerous times. I saw it more than once in the cinema when it came out, and I think Hayley said she saw it 4 times in the cinema.
Wow.
And that is what this film was. It was a cultural moment. It was a zeitgeist. It was something that everyone tapped into. It's, this generation's Star Wars or this generation's Jaws or whatever the big blockbuster of the moment is. Yeah. That is this film. And I think it, like you say, it will stand up to that. I think it will last the test of time.
I mean, I know you did sort of, I assume it was a joke with Loki. Like, I like him in this. I think Tom Hiddleston kills it. He's so evil and so vindictive.
Yeah.
And I love his huge horns as well. they are over the top and huge, but I'm like, if anyone can wear that helmet, he can. And it's like, fair enough. He just walks around like it's normal. Yeah. And there's people going, oh, okay, let's just anyway.
It was definitely a joke, and I do like Tom Hiddleston in this. And I like that it is a reference to Avengers #1 from the 1960s. Loki was the first villain that they fought, and he did so by manipulating the Hulk into attacking I think it was a train car or something, or train track, so a bit less stakes. But
wait, have we fallen into your egg hunt?
I hope not. I have not prepared anything else.
But actually, this did make me... Well, so something about Loki as well, that I do like that he just sits there and he watches Iron Man, Thor and Cap just have their little fight in the forest. Yeah. He just sits and says, I think I'll enjoy this, and just has a little seat.
Which is actually... The forest scene is a reference to Ultimates, the ones we didn't read, which was a bit of a mistake on my part. Yeah, there were more. It was Ultimates Volume 2. We read Ultimates Volume 1. Right, and I was sitting there reading 1 going, where's the bit with the forest? It's not here.
That's fine. I mean, I might read it. We'll find out later.
Okay.
But yeah, this actually did make me think about the Loki show, because obviously in the show he gets captured by the TVA and he gets a neck thing that he can't use his magic.
Something like that, yeah.
Like a neck brace or something. But then surely that means that he would have to be blue for the entire show because he's technically a frost giant and he uses magic to look Asgardian.
I don't know. Look, don't overthink these things, Ian.
Oh, I know the reason.
What?
Comics.
Comic books, yeah.
That's the reason.
I mean, yeah, I get. Is he blue in real life?
Yeah, because he's a frost giant, isn't he?
Yeah, he was as a baby, but then does he ever go back to I suppose, yeah, in one of the What If episodes he was blue, wasn't he?
And one of the Thors he was blue as well.
Yeah.
Either one or two.
Must have been. Was it two? Must have been one, right? That's when they found him as a baby.
He was blue for like a scene. When he was like an adult, he was blue for a scene.
Okay.
When he sort of turned a bit evil.
That must have been one, I think.
That's why I thought it was two.
Well, that was when he.
One of the Thor
it was when he
films,
partnered.
he's
He
blue for a
dies in two again.
He dies in one.
He dies in all.
He
of
dies in
them.
three. Spoilers. Anyway,
Yeah, carry on.
The Avengers. I don't really have much else to say about him. I mean, I love him as a character, and I love him in the film, and it's quite interesting. He's one of the good bad guys in the MCU, now a bit of an anti-hero. But his idea that like freedom is life's huge lie, and he believes he's doing good, but he's not. But he thinks he is. That like I do like that kind of antagonistic bad guy when they think they're doing good.
Yeah. He gets given some really good dialogue, some real meat to chew on, these really hammy scenes he gets, when he calls Black Widow a mewling quim and stuff like that. And he gets these really like frothing at the mouth villainous dialogue in this one. Say what you like for Joss Whedon personal life and things like that. But, when this film came out, it was heralded for all its dialogue. And there seems to be a sort of a backlash on that. But, he wrote Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He wrote Angel and Firefly, which you're a fan of Firefly. You watched that recently, didn't you?
I watched Firefly and the film Serenity.
Yeah, and it is very quippy and it is very Joss Whedon-esque. There is a definite style to his dialogue, but it does feel natural, in my opinion. I feel like, and it is funny. It can be a bit over the top, but
yeah, I believe these characters.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm right in saying that he is a comic book fan. I know that he has written comic books, various comic books over the time. He's written for X-Men, for instance, Astonishing X-Men. He wrote a very good run of that.
Which I bought that thinking we would read it for X month and did not. So that's on my shelf to get read.
To get rid of.
To get rid of.
You should just read it. It's a much better idea.
I will read it.
No, it's a really good comic. It's a really good comic. And he does have even though you're still reading it thinking this is that Joss Whedon quippiness to it, the characters still feel distinct. It feels like he does have a grip on them.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about this. It does feel like that this is someone writing individual characters rather than writing a script and then just randomly inserting who says what line onto things, which I found about some of those later ones.
Yeah.
And it's part of the problem I've had with... I like Infinity War and I like Endgame. I think Infinity War is stronger, but the problem with Endgame is it is trying to wrap up lots of stuff.
Yes.
So it has lots of characters coming on, spouting a load of exposition, and it didn't matter if it was Mark Ruffalo's Hulk or Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow in that scene. It could have been either party.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't say the same for this film, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love this film. It's not a perfect film. I don't think there really is a perfect film out there.
No.
But I can forgive bits like, the Captain America introduction, whereas there's the flashbacks to his first film and the war. It's a little bit exposition heavy. But you need it, I guess, like we said, you don't have to watch that film to watch this film.
Yeah.
So you do you need it, and I like how that they showed it rather than going, oh, you were in the war, Captain, weren't you? Anyway, moving on. So
a little montage. And it is less than a minute. We're talking 30 seconds.
20 seconds.
Get it done, get out of the way.
Sorted, yeah. And then the other bit that I kind of have to just go, meh, is when Stark takes down the Jatari ship, if you will.
Yeah.
And all of them just fall down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Classic...
Is that how it works then? Is it like a Wi-Fi thing?
I think it was. It's Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Exactly the same thing. I think they were battle droids. I'm pretty sure the Chitauri are just battle droids.
Right, okay, that makes more sense then.
It doesn't make it... Yeah, that was a very much... it did feel like oh crap, we need to get rid of this army.
Yeah, whoops.
How do we wrap up the film quickly? Okay, well, they all die because they're all connected to the mothership somehow.
Someone turned off the Bluetooth.
We haven't mentioned this before, but it'll do.
Yeah, but yeah, so there are bits in there. And there was no Happy in it at all. Where was Happy?
I was happy.
Is it? I know, Happy Hogan. I know that he had a bit of a falling out with Marvel for a small period.
I think,
I know that he stepped away from Iron Man 3, obviously, after this. So it might have been in that little period where he was having a little bit of a falling out with them.
He was burnt out by Iron Man 2, from what I understand. And in my opinion, you've watched Iron Man 2, you can see that on the screen. But yeah, basically, they announced a release date without any prep for the film being done.
Wow.
And I think they just went, it's coming. We got Iron Man 2 coming next year. And he was like, what? So
I better start writing it then.
Yeah, I think he basically had to work to a deadline he wasn't particularly comfortable with, and he burnt himself out doing so. So yeah, it was after this that he stopped working with Marvel for a little while. In fact, the film Chef is based on those experiences, from what I understand. The allegory there.
Yeah, I watched a really interesting YouTube about that. I can't remember who it is, but I'll try and put the link somewhere on my Twitter or something. It's literally 20 minutes long or something, and it's just an explanation about how this is his experience of stepping away from this job, which is he's a chef in that film, and Marvel of but it's really like it explains it a lot more than I could. I can't even say the right word, so it explains it a lot better than I can.
Well,
a lot more weller than I can.
Does it explain it well?
It does, yeah.
Good.
But yeah, no, I've seen that.
Yeah,
that is it's worth a look into.
No, it is very interesting. If you're a fan of the film Chef, then yeah, and it is. You can see that whole allegory there for a creative who is put pressure on by a system that he has to produce, as opposed to doing something that he loves. He got into something for a reason he loves, and when it starts to not feel fun anymore, then going back to your roots and doing something that does, much like making the film Chef felt like that for him. That was his food truck. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, talking about someone who wasn't in the film, to now talking about someone who it's his first film, Mr. Mark Ruffalo.
Yes.
When you first saw it, how did you feel about the sort of not Edward Norton appearance?
This is my favourite Hulk appearance in any of the films, including
Hulk and Banner.
Yes, I think Banner particularly. I like that really meek sheepishness to him throughout all the scenes. He's always sort of, if you just watch him in any scene he's in, he's sort of skulking in the background. He's making himself as small as possible.
Yeah.
He's doing that thing like Christopher Reeve in Superman, making himself small as Clark Kent. But it's not an act. It is because he's surrounded by military people who have been hunting him for years. I really like that.
There was a bit actually, that I you might be about to say. I don't know, but when he first goes onto the helicarrier thing and he's walking through and he just turns his back to one of the guards.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not hiding from the law anymore, mate. You know, it's fine. But it's just his second nature to go, oh, there's a guard there, I better hide.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so simple and so just a basic sort of thing, which it's only like 2 seconds, so it's quite a quick thing. But I think that's a really clever choice. Maybe he did it, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think he works really well. I think the previous Hulk, what was his name again?
Ed Norton.
Edward Norton. Yeah, Edward Norton, I felt he didn't quite capture the scientist geek there, but also he was on the run, but he didn't feel like he was persecuted or desperate in any way. In my opinion, he just felt like Edward Norton. Whereas I feel like Mark Ruffalo really does sort of tap into that sort of sheepish, quiet, trying to just go as undetected in any social scenario as he can. So that when he does step to the forefront of scenes, it stands out because he spends the rest of the time trying to slink away out of the spotlight as much as possible.
Yeah. I think Ed Norton to me was a bit too Hollywood. I know he's not really like a massive Hollywood star. I mean, he is, but I wouldn't say he's like top tier Hollywood. But he's a little bit like, oh, he's wearing a tank top, and it's kind of just to show him in a tank top rather than this scientist buff who's, like you said, he's this shy, quiet little kind of nerd. And obviously with the sort of power of the Hulk behind him, I think Mark plays it more scientific than Ed does. And I agree with what you said there. And I don't really, because he got a bit of a backlash as well when he got his role. Yeah. And I was like, just drop it, guys. Like, really, just leave it.
I think people like continuity, and when there's recasting happens, which happens for all sorts of reasons, people can get a little bit defensive, but it is completely pointless because ultimately they're not doing it because they want to. Yeah. They're usually doing it for a reason. And the other option is not to have the Hulk in it. So I'd much rather that. I'd much rather have Don Cheadle than Terrence Howard. I actually prefer Don Cheadle's performance to Terrence Howard's. But
I think the majority of these recasts have worked for the better, which is quite funny.
Exactly. They are done for a reason. And I like Mark Ruffalo here. And I also really like Thor Ragnarok, as we discussed a few weeks back. And obviously he plays a large part in that as well. And he does that sort of confused thing really well there. He's actually got very good comic chops whilst being quite understated. It doesn't come across as desperate. It's not overtly comedic, but it is funny. I think that's what he does well. but he also, because he's a very good actor, he can just change to those sort of emotional performances as and when needed. You know, if you see him in things like Spotlight, he's excellent. But he's recently said actually that he would gladly do the Hulk for the rest of time, basically.
Wow.
Until
Right.
you know, he's one of these actors who just be. But I suppose it's easy for him because he doesn't have to be buff. Unlike, I think that's the thing that a lot of other actors have spoken about. The Chris's have all said that there's a real demand for you to have to be in shape the whole time, and you have to be really buff. Whereas he can just turn up in his suit and film his scenes, and then they go and CGI on some stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there you go.
But, just before we do move on, because I said this last episode, I could talk about this film all day. You know, I like Iron Man, I like Cap, I like Thor. All of the Avengers, I like them. And I like going back to this, you know, iconic New York scene where, you know, and it's more fun now after watching things like Hawkeye and Endgame and these little fold-in sort of scenes that you now know that are going on in the background, but it's quite nice to see it firsthand, if you know what I mean. But I mean, I've read some comics and I know a lot about these characters, but I do like how, unlike the comics that we read today, these characters act like themselves and act like they should act.
Yes, so I think that tells us something. So let's go on to the comics that some people say that this film is based on. That the MCU is based on the Ultimate Universe. Well, let's discuss that, shall we? So the Ultimates, issues 1 to 13, volume 1 as it's known, by Mark Millar and Bryan Hitch, is an early 2000s reboot of the Avengers franchise, set in Marvel's Ultimate Universe, which had already rebooted other popular characters such as Spider-Man and the X-Men. It features a government-backed superhero team in a post-9/11 New York, complete with post-9/11 sensibilities, and that is kind of where the similarities end. But, so have you read this before, first of all, and what do you think?
Yeah, so this is my first time reading it. I know that you've read some of it, or you've read this one before, haven't you? All of it.
I have read all the way up to Ultimatum in the Ultimate Universe. So I've read a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man, a lot of Ultimate X-Men, and then the first 3 volumes of Ultimates. I was reading it when it was coming out. This was sort of in the heyday of my early 2000s comic reading.
Okay. So I can see what you meant or what you said before about them not acting like themselves. I tried to go in with an open mind, and I think it took maybe about an issue and a half to be like, nah, I'm not happy with this so far. Like, I can't see, like Captain America, I can't see him saying parachutes are for girls and then jumping out of a plane. You know, I can't see him putting Bruce's life at risk just to try and get the Hulk out to fight. Yeah. You know, he gives the order. It's not even Nick Fury, it's him. I mean, I'd prefer it if it was Nick Fury, because he's like, I'm the boss, do what I say. Like, we've got every reason to do whatever we've got to do. Yeah. It's Cap. And he even says, you know, he fights for justice, truth, and the American way. Very Superman-esque, and I think they just stole that from Superman. Yeah, also, I don't like him because he doesn't know who Bruce Lee is.
Yeah.
You know?
Although, in fairness, that was to highlight the fact that he was frozen for the entire time.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just adding to my pile of why I don't like him. But yeah, it's not really just him. It's just, I just feel like there was points in this comic, I can't tell you exactly when, but it felt like I was reading Wanted. And even the art style is very similar. Hawkeye looks very much like Wes in that comic, and it really put me off. Yeah. And I mean, I tried to look past it. I tried to sort of just think, it's just sort of this issue, or it's just a little short run or whatever. But then finding out that it went on for 3-4 volumes and you got all your spin-offs and the one-shots and whatever, you're just going to think, how is this? Reading this and looking back to like Civil War, I agree with you that it annoys me when characters don't act like they should act. Yeah. But have your opinions changed at all since going back? Have they got worse, got better?
I mean,
you care?
So as I said, I read a lot of this before, and I didn't have as strong a reaction to it at the time as I did nowadays. Volume 3 is another matter. It was written by a different writer, Jeff Loeb, and everything was the same as it is now, but ramped up again, if you can imagine that. But we are back to edgelord Millar and his bullshit takes on characters, quite frankly. And we've had this conversation, like you said, with Wanted, with Civil War. Here we have everyone's favourite Avengers, each reduced to a singular trait, usually negative, and then ramped up to 11 to create the most flanderized versions of these characters since Civil War. At least with this, it's its own universe. And Civil War was mainstream universe, and that sort of annoys me a lot. At least these are their own versions of those characters.
Yeah, I was going to ask where this sits. Like, is it pre-Civil War, post, or whatever? But own universe. I mean, okay, I can back off it a little bit.
Yeah, these are different versions of the characters to the mainstream ones, but as such, they are literally just broad strokes characters. Here's, like you say, a backwards, unlikable, slightly conservative Captain America who casually mocks the French.
Yeah.
The best thing about that, I think we talked about this in our Winter Soldier episode with John.
Well, I didn't.
Oh, I did then. The best thing about that is that Ed Brubaker, in his run in the mainstream 616, did a rebuttal of that scene where basically he just calls out what kind of bullshit that is, and how the French were basically run over by the Germans, and of course they surrendered because they were a blitzkrieg, and they continue to fight back throughout the duration of the war. The point of Captain America is not the character who's going to make fun of. He's not jingoistic, and I think that's what a lot of people were afraid before Captain America films came out, is that he would be a jingoistic character, a big yes, America, the best country in the world. But he's not that character. He is the American ideal as opposed to the American reality.
Yes.
I mean, we could do a classic character breakdown if you want and discuss what you think of him.
I mean, I've got a lot to say about several characters in this. Not all of them, so I might have to make some up on the spot.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've done Captain America.
Yep.
I think we both said some stuff about them. So, what about Tony Stark, Antonio Stark?
I mean, he didn't annoy me as much as the rest of them.
No.
So you can tell he's got a bit of a problem with drinking, but we kind of knew that. He had some vodka before going off on a mission. He's like, yeah, well, I've got to be drunk so I can get in that suit. You shouldn't get in the suit then. Don't fly an Iron Man suit. It's got bombs and whatever inside.
Yeah.
Drunk. I mean, that's probably not safe. I don't quite like his weird green goo that's in his suit. I know it's probably not Mark's fault. I don't know. But yeah, I just find that a bit odd. Was there so you read a couple of the spin-offs and whatever.
Yeah,
so
I've read a lot of Ultimate stuff, yeah.
Was there an issue where him and Natasha have sex?
I don't believe so. I think that was a reference.
Because in the comic, and they're like, oh, thanks for that casual breakfast or whatever. I can't remember the wording of it. But it was like, oh, I feel like that's like a little, hey, these two hooked up.
That is basically it.
Yeah, but I thought it was like it explored in like a different comic.
Not really. There's some stuff that comes out of it later on, but not especially, no.
Right, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, overall, he's not as quippy as the MCU's Iron Man.
No, but then neither was mainstream Iron Man, in fairness, until...
Yeah, that's the thing. When we read, what was it? We read...
Extremis.
That's the one, thank you. We read that, and he wasn't as quippy. Yeah, I said not the worst character in this, shall we say.
He definitely is not, because he's basically playing a drunk playboy, Antonio Stark, and, it's not that far from the film versions, the other versions we've seen, because they take his one negative trait, which is alcoholism, and they dial that up, which is kind of reminiscent of what we've seen elsewhere. So, by no means the worst offender. But let's go on to the third of the big three, Thor. What do you think of him here?
Thor. Okay, so... I mean, the introduction to Thor, first of all, annoyed me. Yeah, Thor came across like a waste of space, really. At the beginning, he's this fake prophet pissabout who's just showing off his sparkly talents by doing some lightning. And they're like, oh, he's the Messiah. And it's like, no, he's not. He's a very naughty Asgardian. Yeah, I mean, he comes in and he helps the team eventually, and he sort of has this friendship with Iron Man and Cap.
Yeah.
Which I quite like that kind of explored a bit. And the fact that he's coming in to help them. He's not coming in to join them, which is kind of a little bit MCU-esque, a little bit. But yeah, he just felt a bit cocky. But then also like, I'm not coming to help you until the president leaves the White House or something stupid. So he's kind of putting in his political views, or he's putting them in front of like helping out the world. And
yeah, they made him an activist in this, and a sort of a hippie pacifist type, although he wasn't really a pacifist by the end. But they also they play into this idea of, is he or isn't he an Asgardian? Is he just a crazy man with technology and a mutation?
What was the name? Like Thomas I can't remember now. There's a name, there's like the human name for him.
It wasn't Donald Blake.
That was Donald, the one that I kept implying that's who he was.
Yes, they kept saying he was a crazy mental nurse, wasn't it? It was something like that.
Yeah,
and they kept saying this over and over again, and they obviously didn't want to play up the godness too early on, but in this attempt to ground the whole thing, he looks painfully early 2000s.
Yep.
He is wearing a very boring costume. That's what always annoys me. And instead of a hammer, he's got a hammer axe, which he now has in the films as well. But old Stormbreaker. Yeah, belonged to Beta Ray Bill. Right. Should we move on to my second least favourite, let's say, Bruce Banner?
Yeah, okay. So in any film or TV show or comic or whatever adaptation I've come across with Bruce and with the Hulk, I can't see Bruce Banner taking the serum purely just to Hulk out to give the team someone to fight. Which is why he does it in this, doesn't he? He's just like, oh, well, just testing it myself, and then if I Hulk out, the team can fight me. It'll bring us together.
Well, it was also this implication that he is an incel. He is a dweeb. He is put upon by everyone, including a really horrible Betty Ross for some reason. Everyone is awful, and he is the worst sort of greasy little meek man, and everyone bullies him. Yeah, and then his alter ego, the Hulk, is a horny cannibal.
Oh,
and it's
God.
like,
yeah. No.
Yeah.
Two quotes that I wrote down from Hulk, and don't worry, they are quite short, is Hulk straight, after Hulk's being called a sissy boy.
Yes, by Captain America.
Yep, that's so appropriate. There's nothing wrong with that at all. By the way, I'm being sarcastic. Just want to make sure that's out there.
You're going to get cancelled otherwise.
And then Hulk wants Freddie Prinze Jr., which is after he's fighting and he's saying about how Thor's hammer or something makes him horny for Betty. I don't know. It's just this... It's like a 10-year-old wrote the Hulk. Yeah. That's very similar to what we said about Mark's other work, is how do we make the Hulk grab the attention of young readers? Oh, yeah, let's make some jokes. Let's make him horny, yeah. Kids love the word horny. I'm like, you're ruining the character.
It's this idea that he has, the pure id of the Hulk, and this idea that the real underlying mentality of people like this is that they just want to have sex and beat things up and eat things, and it's like this idea that is what everything boils down to, and that is what we see a lot in Mark Millar's other works.
Yep.
This sort of escapist fantasy of awful nature.
Did he write the Hulk extra comic, or not Hulk? The Logan extra.
Old Man Logan. He wrote all of Old Man Logan. Yeah.
So, yeah, even that weird cannibalized future Hulk.
The giant-sized one. Exactly, the incest Hulks.
That one.
Again, cannibals.
Yes, that one.
He's got this obsession with it, and it's really strange. You don't know why that would be. He's not a monster. It's this... Anyway, I mean, this is my problem with this, and it feels like that is the only thing that he can understand as a sort of internalized nature, and then it has this weird payoff with Betty Ross going, oh, can I have a conjugal visit because seeing you eating people's intestines made me horny, or something like that. It's like, what is this your idea of women? Why is this character?
Yeah.
First of all, why did you make her such an unmitigated awful person, and then being like, oh, actually, maybe I do fancy the Hulk. It's terrible. Yeah. And speaking of terrible, my other...
Wait, before you do, because I've got a lot to say about that,
but
okay. I know what you're about to say. The last couple of characters just before we jump onto that was Hawkeye and Black Widow.
Okay.
Why the hell do they look like Trinity and Neo from The Matrix?
Because this was made in 2002.
Right, fair enough. Moving on then.
Yeah, that is brilliant. Yeah, one has a bow, the other one has guns. Neither of them have personalities.
Oh yeah, he gets shot.
End.
He gets shot on the shoulder, and then how's this for a segue? He gets shot on the shoulder, and then blames Janet Van Dyne because she used the comm link. Get off the comms! I've just been shot on the shoulder.
All right. Well, before we go on to the final one, actually, there are two more characters that aren't in this as much, but Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch make an appearance as heavily implied incest twins.
Woo!
You've heard that right, listeners.
Oh god, yeah. They turn up, they make a quip. And they go, well, if you slow down the camera, I am actually there. Okay, that's quite funny because you are a fast person. Okay, lol, moving on. They then leave. They then come back and make the exact same joke.
Yes.
Oh, right. It was barely funny the first time.
Yeah. While standing very unnaturally close to each other the whole time.
Yeah.
It's a little indication.
In a weird embrace. And
Mark Millar, everyone. Okay, well, we've danced around it.
You ruined my perfect Janet Van Dyne segue.
I know, it was a great segue, but you did miss two characters. So,
yeah, fair enough.
We also haven't talked about Samuel L. Jackson looking Nick Fury, but...
and I can forgive that.
That's pretty much it.
And he likes the word daddy-o. It's from the 50s,
He says daddy-o. Which is good, actually, because we made that joke in our Winter Soldier episode, and I forgot about that.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we made a joke about how he should be just using really old-fashioned slang the whole time.
Oh, there you go.
Calling everything hip.
Millar can do something good. Anyway,
he can.
Yeah, so the reason why we're all here today.
Yes. Hank Pym and his Asian wife, Janet. And now I usually wouldn't mention the fact that she is Asian, but the comic goes out of its way to mention it every time she appears. Mm-hmm. It is literally every issue that someone says, she's Asian. Okay, well, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, it really impacts the story.
Yes, and the story, of course, involving those two is a wife-beating plotline.
Yes.
Right,
so... I mean, the domestic abuse storyline. Firstly, I didn't know it would appear in this. It's not something that I'd come across in my research of the characters. I knew that it was something that happened years ago that I thought that, Marvel just sort of swept under the rug.
For many years they did, yes.
To then, 2002, 2004 comic comes around. He reintroduces the story because...
It's a good question, because, as I say, he reduces every single character down to one negative trait and then plays that trait up to be their entire personality. And yes, it is it's a plotline from, I believe, the 1960s or 70s, where he, in the middle of a mental breakdown, slapped Janet, and it was then largely forgotten about. He had the whole Ultron thing. It was reintroduced by other writers. I can't remember if Chuck Austen was before or after this, but in comic book terms, it's a really strange thing because it is no different, because this was the 1960s, it is no different to something that we saw Reed Richards do, that we saw Peter Parker do, and this is that's a character with super strength. So it's no difference to what a lot of other characters have, which is why our Marvel more or less just went, right, well, let's just sweep that under the rug. It's not a good thing to have your heroes doing. Let's forget about that. And then...
Exactly.
Around this time, around the turn of the millennium, with this sort of edgy impact that the late 90s, early 2000s had on comics, several writers, not just Mark Millar, but Chuck Austen as well, I believe, decided, hey, let's bring that back up. That seems like a good direction for this character. As a fan of Hank Pym, it's annoying.
When I was reading it, it did put me off, and I was like, can I just not read this and just tell you that I did read it? I was like, no, let's not do that. Obviously, there's that initial sort of slap or backhand, and I thought, oh, okay, that they've brought this back in. Okay, fair enough. But then it goes extra, it goes further, and proper assault happens, and she shrinks down to get away from him, and a lot happens. And I'm like, oh, so it's not just the old slap, crap, sorry, I'm going through some stuff, I didn't mean to, have a bit of a redemption arc in there.
Yeah.
No, he just goes absolutely balls to the wall crazy, and it's not really explained.
And then it mentions another character, I think it's Betty Ross, mentions, oh yeah, she used to come in with a black eye from time to time back in college as well. So it mentions that it's a repeated thing.
Great friend she is.
Well, yeah, we've already said that Betty Ross is the worst character in this comic book.
Oh yeah, of course.
And that's a comic book with wife-beater Hank Pym here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who we're supposed to side with, either both of them, or we're supposed to support Janet or Hank, because not only that, it's the fact that he makes these characters grow and shrink without any clothes on, which I think is very, very odd.
Well, it's an excuse to have Janet naked every time she shrinks down, yeah.
Yeah, they also over-sexualise her as well. So she flirts with Banner and with Rogers. They do have a little kiss at the end. Yeah. And she even flashes the Hulk to get his attention.
Yeah. It's the only way that she can think. And she's a scientist.
Other ways.
It specifically says you've got 2 PhDs and this is the only way you can think to distract someone.
2 PhDs? Like, that wasn't in there. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Yeah. Like, it's this kind of writing.
Yeah. All of Millar's women, particularly his female characters, I mean, to be fair, his male characters aren't much better as well, but all of his female characters do tend to be reduced down to sort of sexualised nature. They tend to, you've got Betty Ross and her conjugal visit. You've got Black Widow mentioning the hookup with Tony Stark. Not one female character in this comic book doesn't have a sexual element in relation to one of the other main characters.
Yeah, I was just trying to think really hard there and I couldn't.
No.
I almost said Scarlet Witch, but we've already covered that.
Yep, she does, yeah. She definitely does.
Okay, well, I literally said this to you before we came on air, was the fact that this is going to be like half an hour talking about a good film and half an hour talking about a bad comic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I do like that there are bits taken directly from the comic and put into the film. For example, Captain America's trading cards make a little sort of appearance.
Yeah.
And the containment cell, I guess, that they make for the Hulk, that obviously comes into the film.
Yeah, and the Triskelion in general, the building that originated from the Ultimates here. There are definitely things that did start in this comic book and have made their way over into the Ultimate Universe. I'm not disputing that. But people who say that the Ultimate Universe is the blueprint or the thing that the MCU has drawn from the most are completely ignorant of the comic books, if you ask me. There's absolutely no way that you can read this comic book and say, yeah, these are the characters that are in the MCU, because that is ultimately, the plot lines are not the same, so it is ultimately about the characters, and they are completely different.
Yep.
I mean, Bryan Hitch's art is cinematic. The compositions comprise of a lot of widescreen panels, there's splash panels, and they do give it sort of an epic filmic quality. There's a bit of a reliance on celebrity likenesses again, which always is a little off-putting. But overall, it is serviceable and the least of this comic book's problems, I would say.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Shall we, let's brighten up the mood a bit, because I know that you love a good Easter egg or two.
Oh, am I the one who loves the Easter eggs?
Yeah. So,
okay. Is that our dynamic?
So, therefore, I've gone out of my way to find eggs just for you this week.
Oh, thanks for that. I know you hate Easter eggs.
Yeah, I can't stand them, but I knew that you love them, so I've done a list of Easter eggs just for you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Well, let's go on to, I suppose, Ian's egg hunt. Ian this time being me.
Your egg hunt.
No, your egg hunt. Ian's egg hunt. Ian's egg hunt. Ian's egg hunt.
I'm not yoking you. Right, so, anyway, firstly, I have to bring up a Stan Lee cameo appearance in this. This one comes right at the end when he says, superheroes in New York, give me a break, or something stupid and more American.
Where's he from exactly? Yeah.
I don't know. Which is quite clever, because the majority of the characters that he wrote for live in New York or are based in NY, which... It's always quite nice to have a little special cameo from Stan Lee, and especially since he's passed, and I've got over this before. It's always a nice little, there he is. But there's also someone else in the film that you would think has a weird amount of screen time. It's a blonde waitress. Mm-hmm. There's a deleted scene where she talks to Captain America when he's not Cap, so he's Steve Rogers, which also has an added Stan Lee scene that they got rid of. But yeah, this girl is the voice of Ellie from The Last of Us, and is also Gretchen from Recess.
She's Ashley Johnson?
I did not look up her name.
Well, maybe you should have. She is in Critical Role as well, the D&D campaign thing. So she sort of, I recognised her and was like, oh, that's a strange small role that she was in.
Yeah, there was a whole scene where Cap sat in front of, at the time, Stark Tower, and he's drawing in his little book, because we all know that he likes to draw, because he drew a little monkey in Cap 1. And then she flirts with him, she walks away, and then Stanley leans over his shoulder and goes like, hey, you should ask her out.
Yeah.
Hey, random old man, thanks for that information. Thanks for that advice. It's really odd, but anyway, so they cut that scene.
Doesn't turn to him and go, are you Stanley?
Yeah. But yeah, they cut that scene, but they still kept the majority of her other scenes in this as well. But it's quite like that demon from last week, from Constantine, which is like holy water, but they cut her original proper scene, but leave that bit in. But
Michelle Monaghan's character, whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, the base right at the start that was blown up was called Project Pegasus. Mm-hmm. Project Pegasus is a scientific base from the comics, which, again, I like that they've just included that on there. Very quick Easter egg.
It is indeed. Did it have something to do with Death's Head? I can't remember. Death's Head 2, maybe?
I don't know where it's from, but I know it stands for Potential Energy Group, Alternate Sources, United States.
Yeah. Love it.
They just shoehorned like, quick, USA.
Lose the America.
But take away the A.
Yeah, cool.
Yep, and I like the attention to detail and the foreshadowing in this as well. So near the start, when Natasha's speaking to Banner, and he says, we don't always get what we want, or something along those lines. He stood there talking to her while she swings a crib. This is paid off in the MCU a few films later, where we find out that he can't have kids.
Yes.
So even just those small things that I don't think I'd actually seen that before. I just realised it when I was watching it like last night. I was like, oh, yeah, well, there you go. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And a little fun fact / Easter egg that I actually told Kate, and she actually did find it quite interesting. Robert Downey Jr. used to hide food around the set. So the majority of the time when he was eating in character, they'd not told him to eat. He just started eating. And the funniest thing that I do quite like is that he ad-libs bits where he offers food to Mark and to Chris.
Yeah.
And Chris just absolute blanks him. There was no answer, no response to, do you want one? He just carries on his kind of lines. But Mark's like, yeah, all right, and sort of takes one. And sort of see him like look around, and then I don't think he eats it, but he just takes it.
Yeah.
But I love how like those three just have a little scene where he's like, yeah, I'm just going to eat some fruit while we're filming this scene. It's just like a bit of an RDJ thing to do. But I think that's also what kind of humanises his role as well. It makes it more approachable, I guess, and more real.
Yeah.
So that you would kind of see someone of that stature being that cocky. Yeah, like I said, it's just a funny little fun fact.
Good fact, yeah.
And in this, there are 2 post-credit scenes. The first, probably the most significant post-credit scene, which is the little cheeky Thanos tease.
Yes.
Which, I'll be honest, when this came out, I had no idea who that was. I was like, hey, it's Purple Guy.
I went to see it with some friends of ours, and someone turned to me and went, is that a Skrull?
Ooh.
I went, no.
I mean,
a good guess on
yeah,
the Skrull.
good guess,
I mean, that's impressive. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Josh or Chrissy. Someone
who's been on the podcast. How dare they?
Someone who's been on the podcast and someone who kind of knows about comic books.
Oh, okay, but yeah, that is a pretty good guess.
It's the chin. The chin is similar.
Yeah, and then also there's the shawarma scene. Which do you reckon the actors got free shawarma in that scene?
I'm sure they could have done if they wanted it.
Or in the MCU, the people got
Oh.
free shawarma. Like they've just saved a scene, and then you go, hey, have some free food. I mean, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
You'd hope so, but they also with a billionaire. So if he's there going, can I have some free food, please?
They're like, no, you jackass.
Tony Stark. Pay for your food.
But yeah, something about that scene that you probably know, but some people might not, is the reason that Chris Evans is hiding his face is because he's covering face prosthetics, because he was growing a beard, or he grew a beard for his next role, which was also a comic book role, Snowpiercer. Because they also added this scene after the premiere, so it was quite a late add-on.
That was like the last thing they filmed. If you watch Mark Ruffalo in that scene particularly, he is just shoving food into his face to stop him from laughing. I think at one point he just catches Chris Evans' eye and just like puts his head back down again and shoves a load of chips into his mouth. It's like good fun.
And then this last one might be a pure coinky-dink, but the Lion King musical poster appears in both film and comic.
Oh, that is
there you go.
Yeah.
In the Battle of New York, and it's in the Manhattan panel. I think it's when Bruce is going a bit mad and he's on the phone to Betty, I think.
Yeah. I suppose it's a mainstay of the Broadway scene, so
yeah.
If you want to establish something as New York, you can go, right, that's probably going to be there.
Oh, and also, Disney own Marvel and The Lion King.
What? And they didn't at this stage, so that is crazy.
What?
Oh my god.
I've blown it wide open.
That is, Illuminati shit going on right there. Shall we get back to the conclusion and wrap things up?
Yeah, all right then. Why not?
Okay, so overall, film, comic, what were your thoughts?
Film, love it, great. I think it's an essential MCU rewatch film. Mm-hmm. Even if you're doing just the big main stories, I would say you don't have to watch the previous 5 to watch this one. I could go on for days, but I won't. Yourself on the film?
Yeah, I think not only is it an enjoyable film, but it's also a cultural moment that I think will impact pop culture going forward. I think it is like this generation, Star Wars or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's not without its flaws, but I enjoy the hell out of it, and I think that's it. I can sit there and just laugh along with it. I know there's a lot of critics of it these days, but I think if you were there and you saw this when it came out...
I was so excited. I really was.
Exactly. It really did just tap into people's imaginations, and I do think it holds up. And the comic book for you?
Should we move on? Yeah, if you want to read it, you can, but I doubt I'll be advising you to read it. It's Mark Millar, isn't it? I mean, that's all I'm going to say about it. It's if you're a fan of Mark's work, you probably like it.
Yeah.
But if you've read something outside the Ultimates world, I don't think you're going to enjoy it, or you might be surprised. If you read all of the Ultimates, which I haven't, and then you start picking up other Marvel work, you'll be a bit confused why they're not acting the same in both works.
See, to me, this comic feels more painfully dated than comic books that came out in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it was designed to be this jumping on point, but because it is so painfully early 2000s, this post 9/11 sensibility and post Matrix aesthetic, everything just feels so dated immediately. Whereas you can go back and read those old Cape comics from the 60s, and there's a timeless quality to those. This feels nasty and grimy, and it's by no means Mark Millar's worst work, but it is very much reminiscent of a lot of his other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would forgive it if the references, like, I think there's like a PS2 reference in there. Like, fair enough, that's off the time, fine.
Yeah.
But it's not just that. It's just the way that it's just seedy, and
Yes.
like, I don't want to read Marvel comics to feel seedy. I don't want to feel that, or if it's a dark comic or like black humor or whatever, fine. But it's not what I want in a Marvel comic.
No.
Well, this anyway, like maybe a bit of a Deadpool in there, like fair enough, that would be a bit dark humor, fine. But yeah, I don't want that in my standard MCU. Well, I keep saying MCU, but standard superhero set in Marvel's world.
Not everything has to be grimdark and grimy.
Yeah.
And what was Kate's quick opinion of the film?
She said, and I quote, "properly epic."
Fair enough. Properly epic. Okay, well, that's it for Avengers and the Ultimates. Any other business?
Well, yeah, I took this time to put to you that we should watch a couple of the one-shots on Disney Plus.
Yes.
And then so you decided to expand it into what have you been up to lately?
Yeah, I didn't have much to say about the 2 one-shots, but...
That's fine. That's fine.
Hello?
Hey, Ian.
Hey, Ian.
Hey, Ian.
What have you been up to lately?
So yeah, we'll start with the older one-shots. So there was the funny thing that happened on the way to Thor Hammer, or whatever it's called. I've called it Thor's Hammer.
Yes, that was the second one.
Yeah, so that's the one that. Well, do you want to talk about that one first? Do you care which order?
I don't care. I was going to do them in order, but we can do them in reverse order.
In order, that's fine. So the consultant then, that one.
Yes.
It's a nice little conversation. There's some explanation why it's Stark that goes to see Ross. Yeah, after the Hulk film. Yeah, I mean, this one, I think it's just a little bit more of a backstory, and it's just got quite a nice little code name that you find out that he's called the consultant.
Yeah.
Spoilers for that one shot that came out 12 years ago.
12 years ago?
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It's quite funny.
Yeah.
You get a little bit more of Agent Sidwell in that as well.
Well, it's clearly they threw Tony Stark in at the end of Incredible Hulk, didn't actually have a reason why he would be going to Ross.
Yeah.
And so then they've created this as a sort of backstory about why they would send him. And I think it works well. They've quite rightly established that Tony Stark is the most annoying man on the planet, and therefore he's going to annoy General Ross more than anyone else. So, yeah
which
stuff.
works, and yeah.
And timely with Abomination just making an appearance in She-Hulk at the moment. So
yeah, actually, I did think about that. I didn't add that into my what have you been up to lately, because we watched the first couple episodes. But anyway, before we go on to our other ventures, the funny thing, Thor's Hammer convenience shop.
A funny thing happened on the way to Thor's Hammer.
Thank you for saying, because I had no idea what it's called. I love this one. This one to me I think it's really funny. It shows how skilled and epic Coulson is. And yeah, I just like the expansion of this character, because all we'd seen of this character was a couple of cameos in, I think it was Thor, maybe, and something else.
Yeah.
And then he's in the Avengers, and then that's it.
I mean, it's funny, actually, because he started in Iron Man, and I read something recently that apparently they just needed a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and they just cast him for what they assumed was going to be a small role. The guy who
S.H.I.E.L.D.
comes
agent
on.
what?
Yeah, he comes on, does a bit of exposition, and then leaves, And his role just expanded massively over the course of that to 7 seasons of a TV show, multiple films.
Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it?
That one shot does feel weirdly like a car ad. He pulls up in the car, this thing happens, then he just casually pulls away, and it's like,
yeah.
I just thought like it'd be like Skoda, buy yours, or just something daft coming up.
I don't think it was a Skoda.
Whatever it was.
It almost certainly was a car advert. I mean, all of those films have got product placement throughout, so I can't remember what the make of the car was, but I guarantee it was a product placement deal anyway.
Yeah. When I first saw these, I thought they were funnier and more interesting than they are now. I mean, I do still find them interesting, but this is like the days where you didn't have all these like streaming platforms, and it was you buy a film on disc, and you got bonus content, which this is. Obviously now studios and whoever can make their own stuff and put it online, and it's easy. But that's why I think I like these ones in that kind of, because they're made for a purpose.
Yeah, and in many ways the Disney Plus TV shows have really overwritten the need for this sort of little fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
We have the gaps constantly. There is no gap between films anymore. It is a film finishes, we have 2 series of Disney Plus, and then we got another film.
Well, that's what I did like about the first couple of seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the fact that there was an episode, and they all did it perfectly. So like Thor 2 came out, and then the next episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. picked up right after Thor 2. Yeah. Where they go around cleaning up London and whatever it is. That's not the main arc, but just a guy with a bit of bags and there's little like trash grabbers.
And it did start really weakly I would say, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, yeah.
It was only really around the time of Winter Soldier that, suddenly there was a big interesting twist. And then I think, actually, unfortunately, as the divide between Marvel TV and Marvel Cinema, Marvel Studios, got wider, that connection between the series and the films got less. And it allowed them to do some fun stuff with the TV show, but it felt a lot less essential, a lot less tied to what was going on.
Yeah, they did time travel before the MCU did.
Yeah.
They did a season about LMDs as well, so life model decoys, which Tony Stark makes a joke about that in the film.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting for these things to sort of come across into the MCU, because I think they will at some point. That you'll get some sort of clone or an LMD in the film or in the universe at some point.
If they keep going long enough, you'll have everything eventually. Wasn't an LMD mentioned? Was an LMD mentioned in something else? I want to say WandaVision. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Let's say yes.
If it's wrong, we're right.
Sue me.
Yeah, if it's wrong, tweet at us. We don't care. We'll take your abuse.
Please direct it to Papa Joz.
And you can do. if you can find me, you can send me your hate and I won't care. At Papa Joz.
That include me. Am I allowed to do that?
You can do if you want.
Right. Sweet. Hey, Iain. What have you been up to lately?
Oh, thank you for asking. I didn't think you'd ever ask that question. I'm so unprepared for it. Well, actually, last week me and Kate had a bit of a film day.
Oh.
So we watched quite a few films because we had some time off work, and we just thought, let's just sit ourselves on the sofa and watch. And we took it in turns and chose a film each.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go through all the films, but a couple that I want to go through is Spiderhead.
Oh.
Have you seen it?
Haley watched half of it and got bored.
The first half or the second half? I'm assuming the first half.
It's still on our Netflix thing saying continue watching, and no.
Yeah, I'm not going to... there's no spoilers here, but I found it a really interesting premise. A bit of intrigue, some mystery into it. This guy trying to invent these kind of drugs that controls emotions and this kind of stuff. Personally, I think the third act falls a bit flat, in my opinion. It's one of those films that sort of ramps up and then it finishes. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
all right, and then that's it. So it's got a bit of a flat ending to it. I wouldn't say it's terrible, but then when I go online to watch or read about people talking about this film, not a lot of people are. So I'm like, oh, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, I hadn't really heard of it, I'll be honest with you. I think I remember reading casting news back when they started making it, and then it just sort of plops out on Netflix and everyone forgets about it, doesn't it? That's the problem with it.
Miles Teller's role, I think that's great. Not Chris Evans, the other one, Chris Hemsworth's role, again, great. Like, he plays like... He's not the main... I think the main guy is Miles Teller in this. Right. He's taking a bit of a back seat. And I like it. It's good. It's just, to me, the ending. It's the third act. It just rubbed me up the wrong way.
Oh, no. You don't want to be rubbed up the wrong way.
No. But yeah, we also watched Encanto.
Oh, yeah.
Which, in my opinion, is one of the better current Disney films.
Yeah, it's all right.
I prefer it over Coco and Luca.
Hold on. Which one's Coco and which one's...
Coco's the one with the Day of the Dead.
Oh, no. I preferred Coco. I prefer
that one.
Yeah.
And... Luca's the mermaid people.
I remember Luca. Yeah, that was all right as well. I got to say, I put Encanto and Luca on about, but I think I preferred Coco. I've not watched it for a long time.
I watched it once and I came away going, oh yeah, I watched that film last night that I forgot about instantly, so I might have to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we also watched Bohemian Rhapsody for the first time.
All right.
It came onto Netflix and we thought, wow, may as well.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we said we wanted to see it ages ago and didn't get around to it. Really fun, really entertaining. Did feel like it was a bit rushed.
Right, yeah.
And I prefer Rocket Man over it, personally.
Yeah.
I also found out that half of it wasn't real, which annoyed me a bit.
Yes, what? As in, like, the fictional storytelling? Or it's all fictionalised.
Yeah, I get they always have to tweak things and change things and make it a little bit more Hollywood.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But there's a bit where Freddie meets the band at a pub or a gig and he goes up to them in the car park. That didn't happen. He was friends with them in uni.
Yeah.
There's a bit about the band break up 2 weeks before Live Aid. Didn't happen. The whole AIDS bit came out after Live Aid, not before. There was a guy played by Mike Myers is in this, which that character wasn't real, didn't happen. And it's just like, I get you have to sort of take some sort of integrity here and change it and tweak it, fine. Yeah. But you're just writing in fake news. Fake news.
I think it was a film that was beset by production issues with Bryan Singer and things like that, and it ended up being Dexter Fletcher ended up finishing the film. directing it, who obviously was the director of Rocketman. So I do wonder how much of, you know, the quality came from each individual there. And also, both of those films had the same character. I can't remember his name now, but he was basically the Scottish chap in Rocketman who was dating Elton John. He's also in this film plays by Littlefinger from Game of Thrones.
Oh,
it's the same character. I can't remember his name now though.
Thingy from Eternals.
Yeah, that's him.
Icarus
in
from
Rocketman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's playing the same character as from this, and the
I never realised that.
yeah, same person.
Was that an Ian's Easter egg?
I'll play the music.
But you got to make sure that it's spelled correctly.
Yeah. Will do. I'll put it on screen.
But yeah,
for this
those
podcast.
are those are the films that we watched. We did watch a couple more, but whatever.
Yeah.
And I've not talked about it for a while. So Supernatural. I've
Yes.
finished season 13. Only 2 more to go.
Is it feeling like a slog
No,
now?
I am enjoying it. I'm still enjoying it. I finally got around to the Scooby-Doo special,
Yep.
where Dean and Sam get sucked into a episode of Scooby-Doo by a cursed TV,
Hmm.
which it's as daft as it sounds. But yeah, it's just the whole episode is pretty much in Scooby-Doo format, and it's just funny.
Yeah.
And I am pleased that they've announced Papa Winchester in season 4, The Boys.
Yes, he's just getting all of his old mates in.
Yeah, we'll see how long it takes. But like season 5, in comes Sam from Supernatural as well. Why not? I'm calling it now.
Just get everyone in. Scooby-Doo will turn up.
But yeah, there you go. So that's my little MCU / what have you been up to lately? hey, Ian.
Sorry, what?
Ian, what have you been up to
Oh, not...
lately?
Oh, lately, I see. Sorry, right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to go miles back, but all right, let's just lately then. I've also had a little bit of a film binge.
Ooh.
Haley and I are on a sci-fi marathon at the moment, much like we did with our horror marathon Halloween last year. We are on a big sci-fi through history things, and we spent last weekend watching all original 5 Planet of the Apes movies.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've only seen, apart from the newish ones,
Yeah.
I've only seen the first one of the originals.
Right.
And it was one of those films that I was flicking through the TV and it was on. And I think it was like 10 minutes in. And I thought, why not? I think it was a Sunday. I think I was hungover. And I thought, I'll watch it. It's surprisingly good.
I love that film. I watched all these films as a kid, and I think the Channel 4 did like a one a day type marathon type thing. So I watched all of those. And the first one I think is excellent. I think it really does hold up. There's some absolutely crazy stuff in it. And I think it's, really good prosthetics and a big twist at the end that everyone knows, but the rest of the film really holds up anyway. The others are... It is an insane franchise. Like, as every film is different from the last, apart from the second one, which the first half of it is a rehash of the first one. And then it takes a completely left field horror turn at the end. And then the third one has monkeys running around modern day New York doing shopping.
Bloody
and then,
hell.
like, a fourth one is a dystopian 1990s future where monkeys are enslaved by, or apes are enslaved by humans. It is a crazy franchise, and I love it for that. I like the fact they just went...
Yeah, it sounds mental, but sounds fun.
Yeah, it is like that. And every one of them has a twist at the end, usually the last sort of 20 minutes or so. And not only is every film different from the last one, but the last 20 minutes of every film is different from the first 40 minutes. It's like, you cannot predict where they're going to go. The last one, Battle for the Planet of the Apes, is a bit weak, in my opinion. But I admire that they absolutely went there.
What's your comparison then? So let's jump across the Tim Burton one.
Okay.
The Dawn, Planet, whatever it's called, trilogy.
Yes.
The newish ones, I guess. Do you think that the old ones hold up compared to the new ones? The new ones are better? Like...
I think probably technically the newer ones are better films. I think they are really well made, the new ones, and they probably are better than a lot of the old ones. There's something for the simplicity and the obviously complete lack of planning for the originals. Like, they clearly had no idea what they were going to do with the next one when they made one.
Yeah.
They just had to go, oh God, how do we carry on from that? It doesn't make any sense. Well, we'll figure it out.
Time jump. Why not?
Pretty much. So I really like that. But no, I think that the new ones are properly technically. I think we're going to watch those at some point in the near future, do a little marathon of those 3.
They did capture mine and Kate's attention when we sat down to watch the first one.
Yeah.
And then literally right after, we're like, well, we've got the next 2 here. It's like, may as well watch all 3 of them. So I think in one night or 2 nights, we watched all of them.
Yeah.
And we came away thinking, that was actually really good.
They are.
I think Kate even shed a tear in the third one. I won't say anything that happens because people might not have watched it. But they're really emotional for what they are.
I think it's easy to forget what Star Wars and things that came later. What a big franchise. You know, it probably was the first big sci-fi franchise. You know, it had TV shows, it had 5 films, it had comic book tie-ins, it had all of this same stuff that Star Wars did. But it did it first. I think it's easy to forget what a big milestone the films were. I love them. I think they're crazy. But
Were they books first?
it was based on a French novella, I believe. Yeah, never read it. Very different.
Well, you've not read it, and I doubt Captain America would, because he apparently hates the French.
He does hate the French, yeah.
In the Ultimates world. I just want to clarify that.
What else have I been up to lately?
What else?
Oh, sorry, I'll let you ask.
What have you been up to lately?
We've had a busy weekend this weekend. We went to Reading Festival on Saturday and we saw lots of live music. Arctic Monkeys, Pendulum, Enter Shikari, Wargasm, Bring Me the Horizon. Probably some more. Ed Sheeran popped up for a song.
Hello.
I'm Ed Sheeran. It's only bloody Ed Sheeran. And then he was off again.
Fair enough, yeah. Classic Ed.
That was good fun. That was a good day out. Yeah. And then the following day, I don't know if you've heard of it, I went to this thing called KAPOW Wrestling at the Hobbit.
Yeah, I went there, and by the way, the Hobbit is a local pub in Southampton. If you're local to the area or you're around the area, I would recommend going there. And no, we're not sponsored. But yeah, I went there yesterday, and there was a guy that looked a lot like you, in fact.
Funny that, isn't it? Yeah.
I didn't want to say hi because I thought it might not be him. It could be awkward.
Yeah.
Lovely day of wrestling.
It was a good day, wasn't it? I love that cartoonish, over the top.
Really stupid. It's really stupid.
It's so stupid. And the wrestling quality varies massively depending on the wrestler, but that's not what you're there for. You are not there for that. It is hilarious. No, great day out. I thought that was good fun. If you're in the south coast of England and you want to see some amateur wrestling, you can look up KAPOW Wrestling, and they do various things all over the place, I understand.
Yeah, they're back in the area in October for a cage match, which, I mean, I'm all up for that.
You're down. No, same. And I think that's, well, I've probably been up to lots of other stuff. Oh, I went to the cinema and saw Nope.
Oh, yeah, there's Thingy's new one, isn't it?
Jordan Peele.
That's the one.
Yes.
Yeah, it looks intriguing to me, but I've not heard great things.
Really?
Not that I've been trying to find it, so I've not watched or read or looked for the things,
Right.
but what's popped up and what I've glanced at very quickly. Kind of average, I've heard.
Oh, right. No, I really enjoyed it.
But I'm trying to avoid it until I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was your non-spoilery Iain review?
I really liked it. I think I prefer it to Us, but I didn't like it as much as Get Out.
Yeah, okay.
And generally speaking, the reviews and the people I've spoken to have all been fairly positive about it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think generally it was a really solid, really good film, very entertaining, very well shot, a little bit of social commentary in there, as you would expect. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, I thought it was great.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's just things online that I've sort of skimmed past on probably Twitter. So
yeah,
the land of hatred.
Yeah.
Which again, if you want to throw hate my way, I'll take it. I don't give a shit. Yeah. So it's not that I've looked up YouTube people that I tend to watch. Right. It's just things that I've sort of skimmed past very quickly. You know, sort of average, sort of 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, kind of that.
7 out of 10 is not an average, surely.
Well, I mean, okay, like above, like sort of it ranges sort of 5 to 7 is the sort of
okay.
So, you know, above average, kind of that, it sits in that category.
Fair enough. I would give it a solid probably 8.
Yeah.
9.
Because
no, 8. Let's go 8.
Yeah.
A random. Pick a number.
11. I don't know. I liked his first one, Get Out. I liked that. Us, again, liked it. I think I saw the twist coming at the end. Or I think I stupidly said it at the start and then realised that was the twist. So yeah, if you're saying it sits in between those, your personal view, then I think I will like it.
Yeah.
When I check it out. Good.
You should do. And try and avoid spoilers, because I think it does benefit from going in dry, as it were, without having the spoilers. Cool. And that's what I've been up to lately.
Well, I'm glad I asked.
That's all for this episode. Thank you once again for listening. If you enjoyed it, then why not subscribe for more like it? Next episode, can you believe it? It's our 2nd year anniversary. And to celebrate, we're doing the same thing we did last year, recapping our favourite and least favourite comics and films that we've covered in the past 12 months. Will the Ultimates appear? Probably. We'll also be giving out some rather dubious awards, so don't miss it.
Be sure to tune in, wear your best glad rags, and listen to our award ceremony. Best glad rags? Is that a thing?
I don't think it's a thing.
I might have just made it up.
Fair enough. Well, we'll leave it in and see if anyone complains to you on Twitter.
Oh, please do. I welcome the hatred.
Goodbye, everybody.
See ya. Assemble. Avengers. Assemble.
Avengers.
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 Assemble.
Assemble.